Kash Patel's smug grin fades as Jasmine Crockett unveils damning evidence in a fiery congressional hearing, exposing his lies with leaked emails and texts, turning a routine session into a national scandal. The room buzzed with tension, cameras flashing as Kash Patel took his seat at the congressional hearing. He adjusted his tie, his face a mask of confidence. As a former aide to President Trump and a polarizing figure in intelligence circles, Patel was no stranger to scrutiny. His role in shaping controversial policies had made him a lightning rod, but he thrived in the spotlight, expecting today's questioning to be a predictable dance. The committee, led by Representative Jasmine Crockett, a Texas Democrat known for her sharp intellect and unrelenting pursuit of truth, had other plans. Crockett sat across from him, her expression unreadable, a stack of documents neatly arranged. Before her, the hearing was meant to probe discrepancies in intelligence briefings from Patel's tenure, but no one anticipated the storm about to break. Crockett began with routine questions, her voice calm but deliberate. Patel answered smoothly, his responses polished, deflecting with practiced ease. The audience, a mix of reporters, aides, and spectators, shifted restlessly. Then Crockett's tone sharpened. She slid a folder across the table, her eyes locked on Patel's. "Mr. Patel," she said, "can you confirm the authenticity of these emails?" The room stilled. Patel's smile faltered just for a moment as he opened the folder. The emails, projected on a screen for all to see, detailed off-the-record communications between Patel and unnamed contacts. They hinted at efforts to suppress details of intelligence briefings, contradicting his prior sworn testimony. Patel leaned back, his jaw tight. "I'd need context," he said, his voice steady but clipped. Crockett didn't blink. She produced another document, this time encrypted text messages, their timestamps aligning with key briefings. The text suggested Patel had coordinated with a small group to obscure sensitive information. Murmurs rippled through the room. Reporters scribbled furiously, their pens scratching like a swarm of insects. Patel's composure began to crack, his fingers drumming on the table. Crockett pressed harder, her questions like precise jabs, each one landing heavier than the last. "Were you aware these communications were hidden from oversight?" she asked, her voice cutting through the air. Patel's response was evasive, a tangle of legal jargon. The committee members exchanged glances, sensing blood in the water. Crockett, undeterred, leaned forward. "Let's move to something clearer," she said, signaling an aide. A grainy audio file began to play, Patel's voice unmistakable, discussing keeping things quiet with an unidentified figure. The room erupted in gasps. Patel's face drained of color, his eyes darting to the exits. He stood abruptly, muttering about a break, and stormed out, leaving his papers scattered. The cameras swarmed, capturing every second of his retreat. Outside, Patel paced in a hallway, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent. Inside, Crockett remained poised, addressing the committee. "We will continue," she said, her voice firm. The leaked evidence, she revealed, came from an anonymous source, later identified as a junior staff aide who had stumbled onto a hidden server hosting the communications. This aide, a quiet figure named Maya Torres, had risked her career to expose the truth, driven by a sense of duty. Her discovery had reached Crockett through a chain of trusted contacts, each step fraught with danger. As Patel returned, his face a mask of forced calm, Crockett was ready with more. She held up a new set of documents, their contents yet to be revealed, and fixed him with a stare. "Mr. Patel, you've got some explaining to do," she said, her words a promise of more to come. The hearing was no longer routine, it was a battle, and Patel was losing ground fast. The nation watched, riveted, as the truth began to claw its way into the light. The air in the congressional hearing room crackled with anticipation as Kash Patel settled back into his seat, his eyes avoiding Jasmine Crockett's piercing gaze. The documents she held aloft seemed to pulse with unspoken revelations, and the crowd leaned forward, sensing the next blow. Crockett's voice cut through the hush, steady but laced with steel. "Mr. Patel, these memos, dated just weeks after your last testimony, suggest you knowingly misled this committee. Care to comment?" Patel's lips twitched, a flicker of defiance, but his hands betrayed him, clenching the edge of the table. Crockett didn't wait for a response. She projected the memos onto the screen, each line a dagger. They detailed a series of meetings Patel had orchestrated, off the official record, with figures tied to intelligence operations. The memos referenced sensitive assets and discreet channels, phrases that sent a chill through the room. Patel's name appeared repeatedly, linked to directives to reroute classified briefings away from standard oversight. The implications were staggering. A deliberate effort to shield critical information from Congress. Reporters typed furiously, their screens glowing with breaking news alerts. Spectators whispered, their voices a low hum of shock. Patel cleared his throat, his voice strained. "These are taken out of context," he said, but the words sounded hollow, swallowed by the weight of evidence. Crockett's eyes narrowed. "Context?" she said, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Let's provide some." She played another audio clip. This one clearer, Patel's voice tense as he instructed an associate to bury the report before it reached auditors. The room exploded in murmurs, committee members shifting uncomfortably. Patel's face reddened, his jaw working as if chewing on a retort he couldn't spit out. Crockett pressed her advantage, her questions relentless. "Who were you protecting, Mr. Patel? And why?" She laid out a timeline, each date a pin in Patel's crumbling facade, showing how his actions coincided with gaps in intelligence reports. The leaks, she revealed, had been meticulously gathered by Maya Torres, the staff aide whose quiet diligence had uncovered the hidden network. Torres, watching from a back row, her face pale but resolute, had spent months piecing together fragments from deleted servers, her work now fueling Crockett's assault. Patel's composure unraveled further. He snapped at Crockett, his voice rising. "This is a witch hunt. You're twisting facts to fit your narrative." The outburst drew gasps, but Crockett remained unfazed, her calm a stark contrast to his unraveling. "The facts speak for themselves," she said, producing a new email chain. It showed Patel coordinating with a shadowy group within the government, their communications encrypted but not erased. The emails hinted at a broader conspiracy, one that reached beyond Patel, touching corners of power few dared to name. The committee chair banged the gavel, demanding order. But the room was electric. Patel's allies on the committee tried to deflect, accusing Crockett of grandstanding, but their voices were drowned by the weight of evidence. Outside, news trucks multiplied, anchors delivering breathless updates. Social media erupted, hashtags, trending as clips of Patel's outburst went viral. Crockett, undeterred, leaned forward, her voice low but piercing. "Mr. Patel, you swore an oath to this country. Did you honor it?" Patel froze, his eyes darting to the cameras, then back to Crockett. For a moment silence gripped the room, every breath held. Then a new sound emerged, a faint buzz from Patel's pocket. His phone, left on, vibrated with incoming messages, each one a potential landmine. Crockett's lips curved slightly, not a smile, but a challenge. "Answer the question, Mr. Patel," she said, as the buzz grew louder, a ticking clock on his fate. The nation watched, hearts pounding, as the hearing teetered on the edge of chaos. The buzz from Kash Patel's phone sliced through the silence, each vibration a pulse in the charged atmosphere of the congressional hearing. His hand twitched, toward his pocket, but he stopped, aware of the cameras trained on his every move. Jasmine Crockett's gaze was unrelenting, her challenge hanging in the air like a blade. "Answer the question, Mr. Patel," she repeated, her voice low, deliberate, daring him to unravel further. The room, packed with reporters, aides, and spectators, seemed to hold its breath. The tension so thick, it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. Patel's eyes flickered with a mix of defiance and panic. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The buzzing phone, a relentless reminder of secrets he couldn't control. "I stand by my testimony," he finally said, his voice tight, almost brittle. The words landed like a misfired shot, unconvincing, and Crockett seized the moment. She slid another document across the table, her movements precise, almost predatory. "Then explain this," she said, as the screen behind her lit up with a decrypted message log. The log, time-stamped during Patel's tenure, showed him directing an aide to sanitize records of a classified briefing. The word sanitize glowed on the screen, a damning indictment. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters' keyboards clattered, their headlines already forming. Patel's face tightened, his knuckles white as he gripped the table. "That's a misinterpretation," he snapped, but his voice cracked, betraying him. Crockett didn't flinch. "A misinterpretation?" she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Let's test that." She played another audio clip, this one a heated exchange where Patel's voice, unmistakable, urged someone to make sure the trail stops with me. The room erupted, committee members murmuring, some visibly stunned. Patel's allies tried to interject, their objections drowned by the crowd's reaction. Crockett's questions came faster now, each one a hammer blow. "Who was on the other end of that call, Mr. Patel? What trail were you hiding?" She revealed. More leaks, courtesy of Maya Torres, the staff aide whose quiet courage had cracked open this web of deception. Torres, still in the back, her hands clasped tightly, watched as her work fueled Crockett's relentless pursuit. The leaks included metadata showing Patel's communications with a network of operatives, their identities obscured but their influence clear. The implications were seismic. A coordinated effort to manipulate intelligence, with Patel at its heart. Patel's composure was in tatters. He leaned forward, his voice rising. "You're blowing this out of proportion. This is political theater." The accusation only emboldened Crockett. "Theater," she said, her eyes blazing. "The American people deserve the truth, not your deflections." She produced a new piece of evidence, a financial transfer, buried in a shell account, linked to one of Patel's associates. The transfer, flagged by Torres's meticulous digging, suggested payments to silence a whistleblower. The room buzzed with shock, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Outside, the hearing was a national firestorm. News networks looped Patel's outburst, pundits dissecting every word. Social media platforms burned with outrage, demands for accountability trending worldwide. Inside, the committee chair struggled to maintain order, the gavel's bangs barely audible over the chaos. Crockett, unwavering, held up a final document, its contents still hidden. "Mr. Patel," she said, her voice a quiet storm, "this is your last chance to come clean before I share this with the nation." Patel's phone buzzed again, louder now, a siren in the silence. His hand hovered over it, then froze as Crockett's words landed. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the sweat beading on his brow, the slight tremor in his fingers. The room waited, every eye on him, as the document in Crockett's hand loomed like a guillotine. Whatever it held, it was clear. The truth was closing in, and Patel's time was running out. The congressional hearing room was a pressure cooker, every eye fixed on Kash Patel, as his phone's insistent buzz echoed like a death knell. Sweat glistened on his forehead, his hand frozen mid-air, caught in the crosshairs of Jasmine Crockett's unyielding stare. The document in her hand, its contents still a mystery, seemed to radiate menace. "Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her voice a blade honed to precision. You've dodged, deflected, and denied. But this ends now. The cameras tightened on Patel's face, his shallow breaths audible, as the nation leaned in, gripped by the unfolding drama. Crockett lowered the document, revealing its contents to the committee. The screen flared to life, displaying a classified directive, signed by Patel, authorizing the rerouting of intelligence reports to a private server inaccessible to oversight. The directive, marked urgent, instructed operatives to bypass standard protocols citing national security. The room gasped, the betrayal laid bare. Reporters scribbled frantically, their pens racing to capture the scandal's newest layer. Patel's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition, then dread, as the document's implications sank in. "You signed this, Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her tone unrelenting. "You swore to protect this nation, yet you hid the truth from its representatives. Why?" Patel's mouth opened, but no words came. His earlier bravado was gone, replaced by a man cornered, his options dwindling. He glanced at his allies on the committee, but their faces were stone, their support evaporating under the weight of evidence. The buzzing phone, now a relentless torment, seemed to mock him, each vibration a reminder of secrets spilling into the open. Crockett didn't pause. She played a new audio, Patel's voice, clipped and urgent, discussing the directive with an unnamed figure. "If they find this, we're done," he said, the words chilling in their clarity. The crowd erupted, shouts of outrage mingling with the gavel's futile bangs. Patel slammed his fist on the table, his voice hoarse. "This is a setup, doctored evidence." But the accusation rang hollow, drowned by the audio's authenticity, verified by metadata from Maya Torres's leaks. Torres, still in the shadows, her heart pounding, watched as her months of silent work dismantled Patel's empire of lies. Crockett's questions grew sharper, each one peeling back another layer of deception. Who else was involved, Mr. Patel? Who benefited from this cover-up? She revealed more leaks, including server logs showing access by a tight-knit group within the government, their communications encrypted but not erased. The logs, painstakingly recovered by Torres, pointed to a network that operated in the dark, with Patel as its linchpin. The stakes were no longer just personal. They were systemic, threatening the trust at the heart of governance. Patel's face was a mask of fury and fear. He leaned forward, his voice low, venomous. "You're playing a dangerous game, Congresswoman." The threat hung in the air, a desperate gambit, but Crockett was unmoved. "The danger," she said, her voice steady, "is what you've done to this country." She produced a final piece of evidence, a whistleblower's affidavit, anonymously submitted, corroborating the directive's intent to obscure a failed operation. The affidavit, vetted by Torres's contacts, was the final nail, its details too precise to dismiss. The room was chaos, reporters shouting questions, spectators on their feet. Outside, news vans multiplied, anchors delivering fevered updates. Social media was a wildfire, clips of Patel's outburst and Crockett's calm resolve trending globally. The committee chair called for order, but the hearing was beyond control. Crockett held up a new file, its seal unbroken, and fixed Patel with a look that promised more devastation. "We're not done, Mr. Patel," she said, as his phone buzzed again, a harbinger of the next revelation. The truth was a tidal wave, and it was about to crash. The congressional hearing room was a maelstrom, the gavel's bang swallowed by the roar of reporters' questions and spectators' shouts. Kash Patel sat rigid, his phones relentless, buzzing a mocking underscore to the chaos. Jasmine Crockett stood tall, the unopened file in her hand a silent threat, her eyes locked on Patel with unyielding intensity. "We're not done, Mr. Patel," she repeated, her voice cutting through the din like a beacon. The cameras captured every bead of sweat on Patel's brow, his forced calm cracking under the weight of her words. Outside, the world was ablaze, with the scandal, news anchors scrambling, social media a torrent of outrage and awe. Crockett broke the file's seal with deliberate slowness, each movement amplifying the tension. She extracted a single page, its contents projected for all to see. A sworn statement from a former intelligence operative, claiming Patel had personally ordered the destruction of evidence tied to a botched operation. The statement detailed dates, locations, and coded messages, all corroborated by Maya Torres's leaks. The room inhaled sharply, the betrayal's scope sinking in. Patel's eyes darted to the screen, then to Crockett, his face a mask of barely contained panic. "Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her voice steady but searing, "did you order the destruction of evidence to protect yourself and your allies?" Patel's hands trembled, his voice hoarse as he spat, "That's a lie! A fabrication!" But the operative's statement was precise, its details aligning with the leaked server logs Torres had uncovered. Reporters typed furiously, their screens flashing with headlines branding Patel a traitor. The crowd's murmurs grew into a low roar, the air thick with disbelief and anger. Crockett pressed forward, relentless. She played a new audio clip, Patel's voice, strained and urgent, instructing an aide to shred everything before an audit. The words echoed, each syllable a hammer blow to Patel's crumbling defense. The committee members, even his allies, shifted uncomfortably, their faces grim. Patel's outburst was immediate, his voice rising to a near scream. "This is character assassination. You're ruining lives for headlines." The accusation only fueled Crockett's resolve. "Lives," she said, her tone icy. "What about the lives endangered by your secrets?" She revealed more from Torres's leaks. A network map, painstakingly reconstructed, showing Patel's communications with operatives across agencies, their encrypted channels a spiderweb of deceit. The map, displayed on the screen, named no names but hinted at a conspiracy far beyond Patel, touching the highest echelons of power. The implications were explosive, suggesting a systemic betrayal of trust. Torres, watching from the back, her pulse racing, felt the weight of her role in this moment, her quiet courage now a national reckoning. Patel's allies tried to intervene, their objections weak against the tide of evidence. The committee chair's calls for order were futile, the room a cauldron of confrontation. Outside, protests swelled, citizens demanding answers, their voices echoing through news broadcasts. Social media platforms buzzed with clips of Crockett's takedown, her calm ferocity a stark contrast to Patel's unraveling. Crockett held up another document, this one a financial ledger, its entries tied to Patel's network. "Follow the money, Mr. Patel," she said, her voice a quiet storm. "Where does it lead?" Patel's phone buzzed again, its vibrations a relentless pulse. He stared at it, then at Crockett, his eyes wild with the realization that escape was impossible. The ledger's entries, verified by Torres's meticulous work, suggested payoffs to silence dissenters, each transaction a nail in Patel's coffin. The room waited, breathless, as Crockett prepared to unveil the ledger's final entry. Its contents a mystery but its promise clear. The truth was unstoppable, and Patel's downfall was imminent. The congressional hearing room was a crucible, the air heavy with the weight of impending revelation. Kash Patel's phone buzzed incessantly, each vibration a taunt, as his gaze flickered between the device and Jasmine Crockett's unwavering stare. The ledger in her hand, its final entry still concealed, loomed like a guillotine poised to fall. The crowd, a sea of reporters and spectators, held its collective breath, their anticipation a palpable force. Crockett's voice, calm but edged with iron, broke the silence. "Mr. Patel, this ledger's last entry ties directly to you. Care to guess what it says?" Patel's face was ashen, his hands trembling, the fight in him fading under the onslaught of truth. Crockett opened the ledger, projecting the final entry onto the screen. It was a transaction, dated days before the hearing, linking Patel to a payment funneled through an offshore account to an operative known only as Spectre. The payment's purpose, detailed in a leaked memo from Maya Torres's Kash, was to silence a whistleblower who had threatened to expose the botched operation Patel had buried. The room erupted in gasps, the betrayal's depth sinking in. Reporters' keyboards clattered, their headlines screaming of corruption. Patel's eyes locked on the screen, his breath shallow as the noose tightened. "You paid to silence the truth," Crockett said, her words a scalpel. "Who is Spectre, Mr. Patel? And what else have you hidden?" Patel's response was a choked whisper. "You're twisting this. It's not what it looks like." But the evidence was ironclad, verified by Torres's relentless digging through encrypted servers. Crockett played another audio, Patel's voice, low and urgent, confirming the payment to Spectre with a chilling directive. "Make sure they stay quiet, no matter the cost." The crowd's outrage was a tidal wave, drowning the committee chair's futile calls for order. Crockett's questions were relentless, each one a blow to Patel's crumbling facade. "How many others did you silence? How deep does this go?" She revealed more from Torres's leaks, a list of operatives, their code names tied to Patel's network, each linked to efforts to manipulate intelligence. The list, displayed on the screen, was a roadmap of deceit, its scope suggesting a conspiracy that reached into the government's core. Torres, in the back, her hands clenched, felt the magnitude of her work, her quiet resolve now a beacon in the storm. Patel's allies on the committee tried to deflect, their voices weak, accusing Crockett of overreach. But the evidence was overwhelming, their protests swept away by the crowd's fury. Outside, the scandal consumed the nation, protests swelling, news anchors delivering breathless updates. Social media was a battleground, clips of Patel's desperation and Crockett's steely resolve trending worldwide. Crockett held up a new piece of evidence, a decrypted email from Spectre to Patel, its contents a bombshell. "The job's done," it read, "but they're asking questions. You're on your own." Patel's phone buzzed again, its sound a death knell. He stared at it, then at Crockett, his eyes hollow, the realization of his isolation sinking in. "You've got nothing left to say, do you?" Crockett said, her voice a quiet thunder. The email's implications were clear. Patel's network was fracturing, his allies abandoning him as the truth closed in. The room was chaos, reporters shouting, spectators on their feet. Crockett prepared to unveil one final piece of evidence, a sealed envelope from Torres's leaks, its contents unknown but its promise electric. "This ends today, Mr. Patel," she said, as the envelope's seal cracked, the truth poised to break free. The congressional hearing room was a furnace of tension, the crack of the sealed envelope in Jasmine Crockett's hand echoing like a gunshot. Kash Patel's phone buzzed one final time, its vibration a faint whimper against the storm of anticipation. His eyes, hollow and defeated, followed Crockett's every move as she extracted a single sheet from the envelope. "This ends today, Mr. Patel," she repeated, her voice a steady pulse of authority, silencing the chaos of shouting reporters and restless spectators. The cameras zoomed in, capturing Patel's ashen face, his hands limp on the table, as the nation braced for the final blow. Crockett held up the sheet, its contents projected onto the screen. A signed confession from an operative named Spectre, detailing Patel's role as the architect of a scheme to manipulate intelligence for political gain. The confession, unearthed by Maya Torres's tireless work, named dates, payments, and targets, including whistleblowers silenced to protect Patel's network. The room exploded in gasps, the betrayal's enormity crashing over the crowd. Reporters, screens lit up with breaking news, their headlines branding Patel a pariah. Patel stared at the screen, his breath ragged, the last vestiges of his defiance crumbling. "Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her tone unyielding. "This confession confirms you orchestrated a conspiracy against the American people. Do you deny it?" Patel's lips parted, but no sound came. The weight of Spector's words, backed by Torres's leaks, was undeniable. Crockett played a final audio, Patel's voice, broken and resigned, admitting to Spector, "We went too far. It's over." The admission, captured on a hidden recording, was a death blow. The crowd's roar was deafening, the gavel's bangs lost in the uproar. Patel's allies sat silent, their faces grim, their loyalty severed by the truth. Crockett's voice rose above the chaos, steady and resolute. "This isn't about politics, it's about accountability." She laid out the full scope of Torres's findings. A network of operatives, funded by illicit transfers, had operated under Patel's command, undermining oversight for years. Torres, in the back, her eyes shining with quiet pride, watched as her work brought a titan to his knees. The leaks, she revealed, had sparked internal audits, with agencies now scrambling to root out Patel's allies. The fallout was seismic, promising a reckoning beyond this room. Patel's head bowed, his silence a confession louder than words. "I have nothing more to say," he muttered, his voice barely audible, the cameras capturing his defeat. Crockett nodded, her expression not triumphant but resolute. "The truth speaks for itself," she said, turning to the committee. She called for immediate investigations, her words sparking murmurs of agreement even from skeptics. The chair, regaining control, adjourned the hearing, but the room remained electric, the nation transfixed by the spectacle of justice. Outside, the world reacted. Protests morphed into rallies for transparency, citizens chanting Crockett's name. News networks looped Patel's admission, pundits hailing Torres as a hero. Social media crowned Crockett a force, her calm ferocity a symbol of hope. Torres, stepping into the light, was met with applause, her quiet courage now a national story. Patel, escorted out, faced a gauntlet of cameras, his silence a stark contrast to his earlier bravado. The tape of his admission became an enduring image, replayed across screens, a testament to truth's power. In the days that followed, audits exposed more of Patel's network, leading to resignations and indictments. Crockett's leadership spurred reforms, restoring trust in oversight. Torres, offered a role in the investigations, accepted, her work far from over. The hearing, once a routine probe, became a turning point, a reminder that persistence, not spectacle, dismantles deceit. As the nation moved forward, Crockett's final words echoed, "The truth will always find a way." And it had, through her resolve and Torres's courage, leaving Patel's legacy in ruins and the country stronger for it.